So this first video here is just going to go over a bunch of tips and tricks I found throughout my Final Fantasy XIV progress here. They're really basic, but some of them are something new players might not know, or even experienced players, who knows. I find a lot of people in this game, as opposed to other MMOs, are really oblivious to things. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's because a lot of people play on PS3, PS4, and they don't have access to Google, for example, all the time, or just maybe a different mindset for Final Fantasy players. But anyway, I figure I'll start with 5 basic tips. And the first one kind of doesn't really sound right coming from me because I'm making a guide right now of how to make Gil. But the first one is don't just follow a guide blindly. There are so many things wrong with guides, and especially if they're not recent. And I find a lot of Final Fantasy XIV guides just aren't recent. A good example is when I came back, I was leveling fishing, botany, and mining, and I just Googled how to level fishing 1 to 50 and followed the guide. And it virtually, like, every single thing they recommended was the wrong thing to do, the incorrect thing to do. And I'll go over this more in other videos, but that's just the gist of it. The main thing is use your head. Like, there's so many things you can do, and so many different ways to go about it. And it's really Final Fantasy gives you all the tools you need. One good thing the guides are for is the leave quests and everything, or levy. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I'm sure one of you will tell me. Those are awesome for guides because they tell you where they are, where you get them, where you turn them in, and all that sort of thing. So if you plan on leveling with those, for sure, just follow it. But if you're doing any sort of grinding, which I do advise you to do, then I would use your head, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video here. As I say, to use your head and follow a guide. So the other thing are retainers. They are just so important. I have 8 of them here because I'm a sucker and I love space. Definitely not necessary, but the more you have, the better, of course. Especially for your sanity. I find a lot of Final Fantasy XIV's money or Gil making is inventory management. There's just so much of it, and so many things, and it's all time based, as in the more things you can get done in a set amount of time, the more Gil you end up with. So retainers are a godsend. I have 8 of them. I have a bunch of each kind, and I personally like miners the best. They provide me with so many things for housing, so many things for gardening, and all that sort of thing. But I also like having battle ones too, just because they're fun to have. I think the Fisher is the worst by far. I find you can't get a lot of the things you can actually fish out from fishermen, which just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I was trying to get Corythan crabs for seafood stew, and I just couldn't get them. They were nowhere. I had to actually go fish them out like a peasant myself. So, but yeah, mining for sure. If you only have 2 retainers, I would get a mining and a battle for sure, and skip the botany one. The third thing is the process. The entire process of putting things up on the market boards is such a huge deal. Let's use one of the items I recently have been selling for Gil. Let's use Ironworks boots. These started at about 1.5 million when I was selling things. And as you can see down here, they went down to just over 1 million here, and they've been down to 950k for a while, even though the price of the materials has gone down, if anything, or gone up, if anything. And now they're slowly making their way back. So the main thing is, don't undercut by too much. There's just no reason to. Undercut by 100 gil, 1,000 gil, if that. I like doing 1 gil. That way the price doesn't move at all, but that pisses some people off. For some reason, if you undercut by 1 gil, you get angry messages. I'm sorry, guys. I get a lot of those. But generally 1 gil, and then hope everybody else kind of complies with you, because you always have to undercut. You can't keep it the same price. Whoever is the lowest price, even if it's 1 gil, they will sell like 99% of the time. So updating your prices and keeping it around the current price is super important. Because whether or not, Whether or not it's at 900k or 1.5 million, it's going to sell at approximately the same speed. When somebody wants a piece of ironworks, they're going to buy it no matter what. They don't care if it's, well, I'm sure they care, but it's not going to change their decision purpose. What else here? Another super important thing that people don't seem to understand in this game that I have to tell everybody, and like all my guildmates, all my friends, that shards are expensive and you should calculate them into all of your things. Like if you look at lumber, especially, is lumber in ingots. Let's see if I can find a decent example here. So we have rosewood lumber. They're 898 or so per, and you can probably get them cheaper if there's some up. Yeah, like I said, 300, that sort of thing. The rosewood logs are 450, so not the best example, but most of the time the logs will be about a third of the price of the lumber, which makes sense because 3 of them would be 450, so you'd expect the lumber to be about 500. At least most people would, but nobody calculates the wind shards, which are also 150 each or so. So even at 150 each, you have 900 gil just in shards here. It is way better to just buy the lumber. Even if the logs were 1 gil each, you would still be better off just buying the lumber. Even at 900, I'd say even at 1,000, because you save all the time. That's super important, and watch your shards. A lot of people are like, I have thousands of them, I'll never run out. And trust me, you will run out, especially if you want to make gil. I've bought tens of thousands of shards, and it just... Once you have to buy a pack of 3,000 shards for 500k, you will start counting those shards. And finally, this is probably the most important one, and it kind of ties into the very first thing, is just use your head. Like, Google is so important with this game because so many things are so obscure, so many things just don't make sense or are hidden away. A good example are things like velveteen cloth, undyed velveteen, and of course, terrible example right now because they're actually pretty low, but they're very often like 500 plus gil on my server. Sometimes you can only get them at 600 or so. And if you Google FFXIV Velveteen or Undyed Velveteen, it will tell you they're over at the Hawthorne Hut here. Usually the first hit is Gamer Escape. Just click on that. It'll tell you they're sold by the Sylphic vendor, which you do need rep for, but you honestly just do the opening dailies and pick them up. So they're right over here, and you can buy them for something like 230 gil each. So not only is it way better just to do that, but you also save, again, going back to the shards. The shards are probably 5 times the cost of the actual cloth from the vendor. Or maybe not, they're 2 lightning shards. Either way, definitely cheaper just to come over here, talk to this little vendor buddy here. Sylphs are really cute, by the way. And you have Undyed Velveteen for 169 gil each, as opposed to whatever they were on the auction house or on the market boards. And that's the other thing, is there's just so many things in this game you can just buy from a vendor. Just make sure you Google it first, otherwise you'll end up wasting a lot of gil. Anyway, those are the basic things for now. I really just wanted to throw a couple ideas out there. I'll get into very much detailed specific things I used for gil making in my next video, and hopefully that helps a little more than this, and eventually we'll get up to what I'm doing now to make millions and millions and millions a day. So yeah, my first video there, again, more beginner tips. You might not have learned much from it. I hope you did, but you might not have. Either way, please like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of thing. I really appreciate it. My next video, which I may have linked here, I'm not sure yet. I will try anyway. We'll see if I can figure it out. My next video will be focused on the best way to figure out how to level yourself without just blindly following a guide. It's basically a guide to using a guide is what I'm going to try to do. So yeah, I hope that helps out, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks.